Welcome to another Snapshot Sunday. This Snapshot Sunday is all going to be about how much boat work I can do in one day. We've come into the marina. We had an issue with our inverter aboard where one of the components in the inverter burnt out, so it was a bit scary, but we've got a replacement inverter, so that sort of brought us in because we were needing to hook into shore power to get our work done. But now we've got the inverter on board, and I'm just going to get some help from an electrician to get the wire sizing right and get the crimping right so he can supply the wire and do the crimping. But because we're about to leave soon, I'm also going to do a number of other checks and work on the boat today, and I'm going to take you through it. So the main things I'll be doing will be checking out the steering. We rebuilt the steering about 6 months ago, so I just want to check everything for tightness, make sure everything's okay. I'll be going up the mast to put on some chafe protectors onto the spreaders and to reroute one of the lazy jack lines which is awkwardly around one of the stays, and then I'll do some annual servicing of the engine as well, transmission fluid change and checking various things for tightness and just double checks really. There'll be a few other jobs as well, so it's just about 9 AM and the challenge for today is to see how much of this I can get through. So I've just got to go up to the chandlery and get some little wire clamps, which I'll show you in a minute, and also some screws to mount some stracks on the tow rail. So I better get up there, get that equipment, and then I think I'll start by going up the mast. So about to head up the mast to get a couple of jobs done. The first one is to put these chafe protectors on the ends of the lower spreaders, so that will just help if we're really close hauled and the genoa is in close to the spreader. It can chafe the trailing edge of the sail. So I'm going to attach these to some electrical tape. I hear from the riggers that electrical tape's good. It sort of over time beds in and there's a pretty good bond with the tape, so that's one thing. And then the next job while I'm up there is, I had the rigger doing a rig check just last week, and he suggested I put one of these clamps on each of the 6mm rigging just underneath the spreader to stop it moving. They'd moved down just a little bit unevenly, so if I bolt this onto the rigging, the standing rigging, just underneath the spreader, it should lock the spreader in place. So I'll do this first, and then I'll put on the chafe protection. For mast climbing, I use like a solo setup. I've got this system from ATN. It's just like 2 friction devices on the rope and a bosun's chair and a foot hold, if you like, or a foot loop. So you can just like work your way up and down on your own. And I also back everything up. I'm a bit over the top, but I've got a climbing harness that I clip into independently, and I have a prusik on a second halyard, which I'll also run up and down, so if something fails I've got a complete backup line as well. So I just like to be a bit over the top with safety when climbing the mast. There's also one other thing to do when up here, and that is to just run the lazy jack line so that it's not interfering with the rigging. So I'll have to just undo that and run it cleanly and then reattach it at the bottom when I come down. So let's go up the mast. Right, so I'll go up the grey line because it runs a bit more cleanly and it's loading from a block on the front side of the mast, so that will be better. This is always a bit of a puzzle to put on. Put that through like that to the grey line. It's all clear like that. It's the right way up. It's got writing on it which helps you figure out that it's the right way up. And then this comes through, this pin locks in the cam, and it's the cam that when it's loaded locks on the rope, and there's 2 foot loops here, so that's the lower part of the system. And then there's a bosun's chair which attaches to the line in the same way, so you just get it up the right way, in like this, around like this, put the cam in, and then the pin through. And it's important just to make sure that that little retainer's popped out. You can see that's just going to load up and grip with increasing friction on the rope. So that's the work up the mast done. Went pretty well. Good to have those little tasks done. Everything's tidied up nicely. Now the next thing is, 6 months ago we completely removed the steering and we put it back in really good condition. We repainted it, lubricated it, so it's really good. But I just want to double check it now before we leave to make sure everything's tight and everything's still looking good, and whether anything needs any extra lubrication. So it does mean emptying out the lazarette, which is always a bit of a pain. Everything has to come out, including the shelves, to expose the quadrant and the rudder stock and the autopilot. But it's important to do this. It's peace of mind and just double checking that everything's going to be okay with the steering. So let's do that now. So I've got the lazarette empty and the autopilot ram looks good. I've got that corrosion X treatment on it to keep any corrosion at bay, so that's why it's got that sort of yellowy tone to it. So the quadrant's still looking good. Again, it's got anti-corrosion stuff on it, but we freshly painted that 6 months ago. The pins and the turnbuckle are all fine. The tension and the cable is good. Test that back here. It's not going anywhere. The attachment point for the autopilot all looks sound. I put these locker nuts on the quadrant, the main, which is really crucial. That's where the steering really attaches to the quadrant. So they won't have moved. Working smoothly. This is what we want. So really happy with the steering. Everything's looking really tidy in there. Everything's tight, well lubricated, looking good. No signs of corrosion, no movement. So it's good. It seems like we've sorted out the steering, which is nice and reliable, and we can go now and not have any concerns. So that's really good. I'm actually just going to jump over the back of the boat and tighten up the hydrovane. Well, not tighten it up, but just check the tightness of the bolts. That's another thing that just needs to be kept an eye on, so I'll go do that now. So down in the engine bay now, and I'm going to change the transmission fluid, check the bolts on the engine generally for tightness, any fastenings, also check the coolant and hose clips. I'll check the ball joint nylock nuts on the gearbox and speed control levers. I'll check the anode and check the impeller. So just a little bit of maintenance and just some general checks now. So it's just 2:20 now. I've got the transmission fluid changed. Everything on the engine's looking good. So what's probably going to be the last job of the day is going to be moving the circuit breaker for the inverter that we're installing tomorrow. So I need to move it from where it currently is, which is right next to the inverter, which is no good, back towards as close as possible to the batteries, so that that circuit breaker has the effect of protecting the wire. So the whole reason we came into the marina was because our inverter burnt out. So this was our existing inverter, 1800 watts, pure sine wave. But we were out on anchor and Vicky could smell smoke and did a great job in hunting it down, and this component here is molten, basically burnt out. So we isolated the power, switched it off, and it was all fine. in terms of no fire, but not great. So we're going to bin this one and replace it with a Victron. And this is the replacement. It's a pure sine wave inverter, 1200 watts for 12 volts. It's a Phoenix Victron. So it's got these nice terminals. This is where the power will come in from the batteries. Strip the wires and screw them into there. There's an external switch option. There's the on off, and over on this end is where the 3-pin plug is. So this is where I'm going to remount the inverter. The electrician's coming tomorrow to sort out to supply the wires, but I had a chat with him last week and figured it all out. I'm just going to clean out this locker because there's even sawdust in here, and screw this down, get it into its final position, ready for the electrician to finish the wiring tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this week's Sunday Snapshot. Got a lot done today. I've been up the mast, I've put on the chafe protection, sorted out the lazy jacks, checked the steering, checked the hydrovane, checked the engine, changed the transmission oil, and then done some work for the install, to finish off the install of the inverter tomorrow, with moving the circuit breaker and securing the inverter in its final place so we know how long the wires need to be. So I need to pack up now, get everything back together, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. But thanks very much for watching. Give us a like, comment, subscribe, and look forward to seeing you next Sunday. Thanks very much.